EFT tapping, what it really is you are tapping on these points. You're verbalizing a concern or an issue in your life, and you're making it neutral. That at its very core. And you're neutralizing a pattern that's not good for you, maybe a belief system that's not good, maybe it's just generalized stress and anxiety, or a traumatic event that occurred. I've been overwhelmed lately. Doing a million things.
And
going in a million directions. Everything's happening at once. Mm-hmm. But it's also amazing. Yeah. Good. How does that feel? If you're yawning, we're excited.
The yawning feels good. Thank you for that.
Good. I mean, we could, like, if I was doing a session with you, I'd really dig in and we'd kind of, we'd go into who's judging and kind of like what, this isn't for the purposes of today, but what I would go after is who and what are the situations and what is that triggering, what pattern, you know, that's where we would go. But
I really, I feel like I haven't done that since you and I did that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So, you know, my intention for this podcast is to give people the practical, but also the spiritual. Both. Amazing. Practical and spiritual, because they're both important.
Yeah.
They both
I always say
mean a
the
lot.
practical and the magical. That's what I always say. Yep.
Well, we have done an incredible practice, and it's been 5 years since we connected. And we have this mutual friend, Joe DiStefano, here in Austin, and he's doing this Runga event. I'm sure we're going to incorporate this EFT, which you're widely known for.
Well, I know we've talked about it, and I'm just so excited. And, you know, we met here in Venice, here in LA. So it's cool, all these connections, you know.
Yeah, we're all connected, including the meridians in the body, which was a lot of the research I was doing before our podcast today.
Yeah.
And I was coming across a lot of different practitioners. You know, your website is Tapping for Truth. We're going to go deep today, Amy, into all the things that you represent to healing in the world and this modality. Okay. But a lot of people describe this as emotional acupuncture, which I thought was really fascinating, because we're all familiar with like the needles that go in our body. But when we're tapping, and if you watched the beginning of this, you saw that Amy led me through a little section for myself to calm me based on my own struggles I'm having in my life. Would you describe it the same way, the emotional freedom technique? Is it really emotional acupuncture, or is it something different from your vantage point?
Right. I mean, I think we say that to give people a frame of reference, because everybody's heard of acupuncture, right? Well, I'd say most. I'm in California, so. But yes, I think that giving people a frame of reference, like, why am I tapping on myself first? It's like, why do I do that? Right. Okay, great. These are meridian points in the body. People can, you know, even like, you know, science people or kind of people that maybe aren't into like alternative modalities might say, okay, I believe in the points in the body.
Yeah.
And I believe that if I tap on these, I can do something.
I feel something. They exist.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think you start there. And so emotional acupuncture is kind of an easy way to reference that. But really, I mean, I think what it really is you are tapping on these points. You're verbalizing a concern or an issue in your life, and you're making it neutral. That at its very core. And you're neutralizing a pattern that's not good for you, maybe a belief system that's not good. Maybe it's just generalized stress and anxiety, or a traumatic event that occurred. So it's all the range. But I think it's, emotional acupuncture is an easy way to kind of say, bringing these things down to neutral.
Yeah.
These things that are kind of disrupting your system from an energetic level, like your nervous system, right? But physically too, with fight or flight. So depending on the audience I'm talking to, I can make it more spiritual. I can make it more, we can get more physical about it.
We're all the things. We're all the things, Amy.
Your show's all the things.
It's interesting because I went through, and maybe you can relate to this in your own life and practice. I went through a death and rebirth this year. Have you been through one of those? So,
I mean, yes. Yeah, definitely. I think when I got on this path, 6-7 years ago, sure. Mm-hmm. The
world you were in before, which we'll talk about here in just a second, I went through a massive rebranding, rebirth, death and rebirth on 2/22/2020. 222, which was like a potent number. I feel like if we were ever going to do a big change in life, 222 was it.
Yeah.
So the podcast went from wellness force to wellness wisdom. And I changed my teaching model of, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual to mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, financial. So the square became a pentagon. And I'm curious for you, when you use tapping with clients and when you really explore the depths of what they're feeling, what their body's trying to seek relief from, have you changed your teaching model from when you started your client work and your practice with EFT, or has that foundation of EFT remained the same?
Those are good questions. I mean, I know that I've evolved in my intuition. As you use it, it's better and better. Like, I feel like I can cut through things so quickly now when I start working with someone. But that said, I do think the foundations are the same, rooted in this just powerhouse of a technique. Or techniques, sorry, plural. So no, that hasn't changed, but I think my ability to work with that person to get to the root quickly has evolved for the better, where we can get through things faster. I mean, EFTs works pretty quickly just in general. That's why people love it. But I think as a practitioner, I've gotten just sharp at getting there fast, if that makes sense.
Sure. Well, let's go to the base and then tell us the evolution from there. So the base of emotional freedom, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a psychiatrist in the 60s who found it by accident. And then another emotional intelligence or mental health professional actually put the practicum on it. So tell people how it started, and found by accident, which is pretty cool. It wasn't an accident. And then it turned into this worldwide phenomenon for healing.
Totally. Yeah. So I, years ago, the psychologist, he was just playing around with a client, and he was a psychologist, or psychiatrist, excuse me. And he was playing around with acupressure points. So he was like, oh, let me just try this with this woman that had some severe water phobia. And so he just played around with tapping kind of randomly on certain points that associated with fear. And it was like, the story goes that it was like instantaneously gone. This phobia. And so from there it was born. But back then, apparently it was a very complicated set of points. So for a certain problem, you do this series of points. For another problem, you do this series. And it was very complicated. And then enter Gary Craig, who was a Stanford trained engineer turned kind of wellness guy, who totally revamped it and really named it EFT. It was called thought field therapy before, TFT.
I like EFT more. EFT makes more sense.
It does.
Freedom. We all want freedom.
Yeah. He worked with a bunch of acupuncturist and developed and made it so the points that I led you through at the beginning of the call,
yes,
they never change. Whether you're working on PTSD, whether it's a relationship problem, whether you have some sort of phobia, whatever the thing is. So that's like, it's so much easier for the client because they can just kind of get relaxed. A lot of my clients close their eyes while they're tapping. They know the points. They can go inward.
How long do they last? I know we did something brief, but it made me yawn, so I know it's working. Yes. Because yawning is a catharsis, even if it's micro or macro.
We always look for like yawning, eye watering, eye gaze, everything kind of shifting.
Because when I lead my students or I go and to do breath work myself, I can yawn 50 times in one session. And so I'm curious with EFT, you could do 3 minutes, 5 minutes, but what is the average time frame for people? And this is for practitioners, by the way, that are coaches, therapists. This is also for human beings that have trauma, which is essentially all of us, capital T, lowercase t. But how long does that last? Like, what's the range of time where you actually get the benefit? Is it 3 minutes? Is it an hour? Is it somewhere in between?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could do EFT yourself. And that's what we really teach, or I teach my clients, is you can start your day and do it for 3 minutes and feel great. So you start with 3 to 5 minutes in the morning if you're overwhelmed or whatever the feeling is. In a session, if we're kind of going after a particular problem, we're doing several rounds during that 90-minute session. But we're starting with a certain issue. Like you came to me saying, oh, I feel like I'm just really feeling, the intensity of my sensitivity. We start there.
Yeah.
And every 3 to 5 rounds, so those cycles I took you through, we stop and check in. Hey, how are you feeling now? And then they might say, you know what, now I'm really feeling this. And so it keeps shifting throughout the session, and you're just literally peeling back the layers. And it's just, it just feels kind of like a miracle, really, because it's just this way to keep peeling back to get to the root of something pretty quickly. So I'd say every 3 to 5 rounds, I'm stopping and saying, hey, how's that anger now? Let's say it's anger. Hey, how's that resentment? Well, you know what? Now I'm done with the anger, but now I'm really sad.
Great.
I'm super sad. So it's changing throughout the session.
So as this morphs into really, if you look at Hawkins' work or anyone in emotional intelligence, the frequencies, you go from, the lowest emotion, which is shame. I mean, shame is the worst thing we can feel, right? And then you eventually come up around 200 or 250 to courage.
Yeah.
And then after courage is acceptance and then inspired action. So for people that have heard of EFT tapping, and by the way, I want to make sure EFT, emotional freedom technique, is tapping, and tapping is EFT, correct?
Yeah, they can use.
So it's interchangeable. When people are looking at this work, how does it differentiate from EMDR or talk therapy? Or are they just more synergistic?
Yeah, EMDR is a specific. You have to be I believe you have to be a psychologist to be trained in it. You have to be a licensed therapist, and you're strictly using the eye gaze. So it's a kind of, I don't want to say re-traumatization, but you're going through the trauma, but using this eye gaze technique to disengage from it. I do have clients, some have tried it, some like it, some don't. I've gotten mixed reviews on it. I personally haven't tried it. But again, it is the same as EFT in a sense that we're trying to neutralize a trauma. And EMDR is using the eye gaze for that, whereas we're using the tapping. Regarding traditional talk therapy, I think it has its place, definitely, because you can talk through things and get a lot of rational thinking and figure out why you have a problem. But the difference is, and when my clients come to me, they've often already done talk therapy, I'd say 95% of the time. And they're coming to me saying, I tried this, I did learn a lot, but I'm still having the panic attacks. Or I'm still having the trouble in my relationship, or this trauma pattern keeps happening. So where the EFT comes in, and it's a beautiful complement to talk therapy too, if people want to do both, is that we're getting after where it's held in the brain. So we're really going after fight or flight, and we're going after the limbic brain. That's why we're tapping. So when I say limbic brain, just think emotional brain, right? Where fight or flight is held, where the freeze response is held. So if you're a child and you can't run or fight, you go into freeze. And I'm sure your listeners know this. All of that is stored in the body. Every time you go into the freeze response.
The body keeps the score.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So to sum that up, when you tap while talking, you're accessing that nonverbal part of the brain. So let's say someone can say to me, hey, I know why I had the panic attack, or I know why I keep having this problem. I can't stop it though. Let's say it's an addiction. Say it's a phobia. They very well can tell me when it started. This is why it keeps happening. So it's like, let's go after that part of the brain that doesn't register spoken language. Let's tap and see if we can go after that and neutralize it.
What is that part of the brain? Is it the limbic system? Is it the default mode network? What's going on there?
We talk about the amygdala a lot, and just that part of the limbic system where fight or flight, fear, a lot of those kind of autonomic responses are that don't respond to spoken language. So I use panic attack a lot as a reference just because people understand that a lot. People understand anxiety because they've experienced it. In that you could be safe in your home and know you're safe. You're looking around, but your body still goes into the full-blown panic attack.
Yes.
You can tell yourself, hey, I'm safe. I'm home. Body's still in it. I mean, I've seen this happen, right? So the person's still in a full-blown pain. They know they're okay rationally, but that part of the brain is so activated because of something that happened. Maybe things happened more than once. Maybe it was an isolated time. In any event, we want to go back, neutralize that, bring that whole thing down. So bringing the cortisol levels down and accessing that part where this response happened. Right.
We're half beast, half spirit. I talk about, it makes perfect sense. I talk about this all the time. And I was recording an interview for another show yesterday, and I said exactly what you said, but you said it in a very eloquent way with really the lens of neurology, of what's going on with our axons and dendrites in our brain. We are a machine, Amy. We're a beast, and you're a soul inside of your body. And so am I. We chose to incarnate on Earth at this time. So
Absolutely.
Both of these things, and this is where I find, and I'm curious how you feel about this, in our industry, I guess you could say, of wellness, there are two camps that like to kind of play in the illusion that they're separate or that we're separate. And one camp says science is a god. Yeah. And then the other side, without the right awareness, can say, well, actually, all there is love. And all we need to do is go meditate on the top of a mountain and just, tap all day long and never come down to the 3D world and experience challenges and problems. Where's the middle of that for you? And how does EFT play into that for support?
Yeah, that's so great. That's really funny. I love how you said that. Because we're not monks meditating in a cave, right? That's what my yoga teacher always says.
We're not.
Like, that would be so great and easy, right? Yeah. Well, no, I don't know if it'd be easy, but and like life it's hard, right? I mean, I love life. I love Earth. Love being here. But life it throws stuff at you. And I think that this tool, and I don't think it's the only tool for sure. I think EFT is amazing, but I also do yoga. I also meditate. Whatever your little toolbox is, EFT is one of my top 3. And I think it just works so well when during the day, life is happening. Someone hurts your feelings, something happens, you're triggered, you can tap right then and there and immediately bring your cortisol levels down. So someone who's, let's say, sciencey, they'll go, how does this work? They have a ton of research right now about EFT and the cortisol levels and how just within 10 minutes it's going down. So you say, okay, that's a real thing. It's a science thing. That's a way I can get through my day when these things happen. And whether that's just being in traffic, whether that's an argument with your spouse, kids, life, everything, right? So I think it is that idea that we're householders and we're not in the cave, we're on the mountain. And we need stuff to help us navigate through. I mean, I know I do at least, Yeah,
that's an interesting phrase, householder. Where did you pull that from? Is that from India, householder?
It's funny. That's a big term. The kind of yoga I practice, I mean, I love all forms, but the one that I've trained in is Kundalini yoga.
Yes.
And so there's this kind of, this phrase we always say that we're householders. And here's a tool to use every day. You can do a little meditation, you can do it 3 minutes, you can do it for an hour, whatever, to keep you, and they always say this because we're not isolated on the mountain in the cave or whatever. So that word householder comes from that lineage.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I've heard of, our body is the only place we'll ever live because it's our house. So we better take care of our house. So I hold my house, literally and figuratively. I walk in my meat suit, which is my house. So I think about all the stimuli that comes at us all the time, Amy. And I'm wondering, what is it about the pairing of obviously being still, being facilitated through EFT tapping, but also the somatic experience, the physical portion of the EFT combined with the intentionality? What's the secret sauce there? In other words, with the blending of the physicality and the somatic experience and also being led through the different points, the meridians, what's actually going on there to make it a synergistic blend?
I have a great handout for this, but each of those points is kind of the end of a meridian pathway, and it relates to different organs in the body. but then also different emotions. So for example, that point that's right below the breast line, right on the rib cage, that a lot of fear, anger, resentment, they
Is
say
that
that
liver?
point is relative.
Liver?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So people, say, well, why am I tapping here, there, all of these? And a lot of times I will send clients this so they can see, oh, why am I like, what is that point associated with? Some people don't care. They're like, it works. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But other people want to know, oh, what is? Oh, okay. Shame is here. Anger, fear, naming the different things. And each of those points is associated with that, a certain meridian pathway.
And so when we access that through physical touch, through one of our senses, it
Yes.
is helping to calm the portion of the brain that essentially doesn't use words to feel better, right? There's no words you could tell the brain. If the brain is in a trigger in a loop, you could say anything, but if you're not actually addressing it where it lives in the energetic system of the body, then we don't really have a chance to clear it.
Exactly. You said that perfectly. Yes. Yes, exactly. So that's why we're pairing, and people say, well, why do you talk then? But you have to verbalize it, right? We are working with the frontal cortex too, right? The mind. So, I just, to give an example, but a lot of my clients come to me and they'll tell me, you're the first person I've said this to. This is the first time I've talked about that I was sexually abused as a kid. Or you're the second person that's ever known that this happened to me. I think, wow, well, I am so grateful to be the one here with you, helping you through this with you, right? I'm not doing this to them. We're doing it together. And just tapping and just saying what happened. So even though this really awful thing happened to me when I was 5, I'm working to get through it, right? And then we're going through, and maybe just saying what happened. Maybe you just start there. Then we might go into the emotion, whether that's sadness, resentment, anger. So I think that you are talking to access the frontal lobe too, right? But then you're tapping to get to those, like you said, these meridian, these things we can't even see.
Yeah.
They are so deep. I mean, the meridian system is like, I can't even go there, right? It's this unseen energy system, but we know it works,
So everyone who's curious, go to joshtrent.com/448. That's our episode number. Amy, I'm going to get that resource for you about the organs and the location of energy, and we'll put that in our show notes.
It's a great handout. Yeah.
joshtrent.com/448. So Amy can give that to us. I'm curious for you, like with all the past 6 years plus and everything that even got you to the bulkhead of EFT tapping, what was going on with you from an emotional or nervous system perspective that maybe you yourself were stuck in fight or flight?
Yeah, mine was, it's funny. I found EFT probably like several years before training in it. And I was a client and someone had just recommended it to me. I was more stuck in a relationship pattern. So I kept having the exact same romantic relationship.
Yeah.
It was like the same guy, but a different guy, right? Over and over. And I thought one day I woke up like, this is wild.
What kind of guy was it? Like emotionally unavailable, bad boy, narcissist, or something else?
They would leave very quickly, very suddenly. I mean, everything's perfect. Wake up one day, out. And I'm like, the second or third time you're going, all right, what's going on here? There's something weird going on. So I kind of was seeking out I was very sad at this point. This person was someone I thought I was going to marry. And someone said, hey, why don't you try EFT? And it just worked so quickly. I dropped the sadness. I figured out why this pattern was happening. And I would call trauma, there's little t trauma and big T trauma, right? Yeah. This was kind of a little t trauma in my life. When I was a kid, but when you're younger than 7 years, you're you're hyper suggestible. So even little things can really get magnified, right? Like a birth of
even a comment. A parent can say one comment and it imprints, and then you spend your life recovering.
And so, maybe having a sibling born.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe if your mother in my life, my mom lost her mom when I was little.
Mm.
And so there was that kind of I don't want to call it abandonment. I mean, I was loved and cared for, but there was a disconnect for a while there of her loss and, affected us children. Anyway, so this was too much to get into, but it was showing up in my life and my romantic relationships. And once I did this tapping, I think I had, I don't know, 2-3 sessions. That pattern never repeated again. It was broken. And so it was just like, wow, this stuff's magical. And so over the years, I would reach out to this practitioner as needed. My dad had cancer. My dad passed away, maybe trouble in a relationship. I went to EFT and it was just magical in how it would help me like neutralize things quickly, get to the root of it, clear it, and move forward. And so the story really is that my practitioner, who's lovely, she said, why aren't you going into this? You love this so much. And I said, I don't know. You're right. And so I flew out to California. I didn't live here at the time and trained. And from that point forward, it just put me on a trajectory of, I came out to LA and just everything happened. I think everything opened and I dropped a lot of probably negative belief systems and negative patterns.
What was the wisdom of what happened when you were younger that came through from EFT?
You mean going back and kind of healing around?
Yeah, when you were experiencing what had occurred, what was the wisdom you learned from that as an adult practicing EFT?
Right. I see what you're saying now, that I'm connected and not alone. Right. I think there was a feeling of this, where this kind of abandonment was showing up, was just this feeling of, well, I'm alone.
Yeah.
Right? And really, when we do EFT, it's really amazing when I'm working with someone, if it's something that happened when you were young. So when I say young, I mean below 7 years. There aren't that many beliefs that are formed. It's like 6, 7, 8 beliefs. It's, I'm unlovable. I'm alone. World is not safe. Just to name a few. There really
money
aren't
doesn't
that
grow on
many.
trees.
Yes.
Money's bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Money's bad. Like, I mean, it isn't like clients are like, wow. I'm like, nah, it's really not, it's really, there aren't that many when you go back to when you're a kid. I'm unworthy. Right. What's so special about me? I'm bad. I'm inherently bad or flawed, another word to put it. I'm dirty. Okay. If something happened, maybe in the sexual molest realm. So you go back and you just find it pretty quickly. What was the belief? What was the negative belief that was formed? Now I'm speaking, mostly around a trauma that would have happened in the childhood. A parent's divorce. Kids think it's their fault. And even though it's no way their fault, when you're young, your kids internalize things as somehow this is my fault. Right. And it's because their brains, I think, are still in that, they call it like a hypnagogic state before 7 years of age. And they just believe certain things. So yeah.
Yeah. Things get so deep in the subconscious, and I don't care who you follow, any human being that's done any work of research from past masters or contemporary masters, they're all saying the same thing with different words. And that is 90% or so of how we show up in the world is subconscious. And I want that to really hit for everyone. It is subconscious. So if the body keeps score, and the body is the subconscious mind showing itself to the world. So if I'm carrying extra weight, that's subconscious. If I'm having an eating disorder, that's subconscious. If I'm cutting myself, whatever it is, I mean, we could list a lot of things that are deleterious to us. They're happening on a deep, 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 non-visual subconscious storage unit. Can you talk about that and what comes up for clients in that exact realm for EFT?
Yeah. Well, a lot of times when we're tapping, I say, because they'll say, well, why are you saying some of these negative things? I say, don't worry, I'm just talking to your subconscious mind. And just to be clear, I'm not making these up. I'm writing down things they're saying.
Yeah.
So we're chatting for a good 20 minutes. got the stuff down. When I repeat it back to them, they'll say, I said that, wow. Right. So we are going after the subconscious mind. To your point about, I really love working with weight and EFT, right? On either end.
With weight, you said?
Weight.
Oh.
Let's say you mentioned weight or, weight loss.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant like weight on the body. I was visualizing you with a client with like having them put a sandbag on their chest, but you're talking about physical weight, like
weight. Let me be clear.
Fat.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. So they come to me with weight issues, but and it's just really amazing to go back. And it's just what you said is, let's go back and figure out, where did this start? Or excuse me, when?
Yeah.
And what was going on in your life? There's a list of like 5-6 questions I ask, and you just get a wealth of information of where to begin, right? And really saying, what part of this is emotional weight, right? Obviously, diet, exercise, all that. But I'm saying, taking all that out, let's just look at the emotional component, and really start there. And it's like you said, there's just a lot of subconscious thoughts, which could be, I need this weight to protect me. This weight insulates me from the world or the pain or whatnot. I mean, there's several different reasons. I'm just naming a few.
A breakup, or being hurt again, or, never again will I let someone do that to me. So I'll put this padding on so they won't get in.
Totally. I mean, it seems like so simple. You think, really? But it kind of is that very real.
And then they spend
relationship.
I've seen this so much. I was a trainer for 10 years in gyms, and so many clients would come in and they'd be crushing it with their workouts.
Yeah.
And they'd be eating great, but they wouldn't get any results. And I'm like, what? I was scratching my head, like, what is going on here? Yeah. And then when I really started to lean my own heart into wellness, I found out about the subconscious and about all these deep-seated things that are constantly growing, constantly festering. You can be the smartest person in the world, and I want to know if you see this play out in your clients. You can be a doctor, you could even be a yoga instructor, you could be someone even in the health realm, struggling yourself with some health aspect, but you just haven't uncovered the well inside of your own subconscious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what you've been holding on to. What's really great is when someone first comes to you and says they have a problem, and let's say it's very surface, something like, I'm not getting along with my boss. Okay, so we'll take something like that. I'm not like, what happened to you when you were 5? We just start like, I'm chill, right? I'm like, all right, tell me what's wrong. What's going on? Well, and they're complaining, right? I'm writing it all down. What's going on? And we just start there. And then as we're going through it, they're like, who this boss reminds me of? Who's standing in, right? Is it mom, spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, brother, sister, you name it.
Mm.
And where is this showing up in my life, right? Why is this happening? Maybe they had a boss in the past job that was a problem too. So you're kind of like, it could be isolated, but you are usually looking for a pattern. And, you get people coming to you for something like that. We start there. Then we kind of go back. Like, well, has this happened to you before? Or back to the weight issue. Let's say it's been maybe a ongoing issue in different parts of their life. When did it start? Did it ever go away? Did you ever not have the problem? So with just some real basic questions, you can kind of figure out what was going on in their life at the time and kind of go from there. But what people come to you for and then what you end up working on is always kind of a fun surprise.
Yeah, it's like, what do people want versus what do you intuitively know that they need as far as relief? Because everyone's seeking relief when they come to EFT. I'm sure that's the number one thing. I need relief, correct?
Yeah. Yes. Just from all the stress or anxiety or whatever the thing they're dealing with, right?
This is an interesting, go ahead.
But they'll just say to me, like, how did we get here? Like we'll start with something like very, I feel like maybe like a relationship problem. Let's say, oh, my husband, this, or, and all right. So we start there, and it might just be that. And we can tap to take that stress level down for sure. But I'd say more often than not, we kind of get after other stuff that needs to come out in the subconscious, like you're saying, that's been held there.
So the lower level, or the somatic, the subconscious and somatic connection, is showing up as a terrible marriage, or a relationship that you keep attracting. It's the same narcissist guy, or it's the same unemotionally available woman, whatever it is. It's interesting because I think about, and this might be a question you've never been asked before, when we look at spiritual bypassing of a healing path, can that be caught by EFT? In other words, if somebody's really, really good, if their ego is very strong at having people around them see, quote, quote, bunny ears, if you're listening in the car, see that they're doing the work, but they're really smart and they're actually using the work, whether it's yoga or EFT, to bypass their own healing. Is that possible with EFT, or will EFT bring that up regardless?
I really believe it does. It will uncover it. I do. And if they're not ready, I probably won't see them again after one session.
Because their ego will get scared about healing and never come back.
Totally. This doesn't happen a lot, but once in a while, I'll get that one-off session where it worked, or we got into something that they were not ready to deal with. And that's fine. You know what? Reach out to me. And, sometimes 6 months later, they come back, say, hey, I'm ready. Yeah. Right. So yes, I think it does find it. I don't think you can bypass. If that person is not ready, they might have to come back around when they're ready.
What actually makes someone ready?
Good question. I just think it's a willingness. Mm-hmm. I think that's all.
Is it from their soul, or is it from some other place?
Oh gosh. Well, those are really good questions. I have to think it's on a soul level of saying, I am so ready to drop this pattern. I mean, I could speak for myself. That was me. I was so tired of it. And wanting a healthier relationship, that I would do anything, right? I was like, I'll try anything. So they said EFT. I'm like, I'll do it. I think that, so the readiness, I think, is I do not want this pattern anymore, or I do not want this trauma anymore. I had a woman that had experienced sexual assault, and she was just so tired, years later, of still being haunted by that. And she's like, I am just done. So I think it's just, I would say it is on the soul level of just that readiness. And I would say those that aren't ready, I'm sure maybe it can be scary.
Yeah.
And I think their soul does want it, but maybe it just gets really overwhelming. And sometimes when you're really used to a habit or used to a way of being, you're almost afraid to drop it.
Because you get something from
safe?
it.
Well, yeah. Is it safe to let go of this fear? Let's say I'm terrified of men. Let's say that's my thing. And I say, well, we're going to get rid of that, right? I mean, I don't say it but in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, they might think, well, no, this is my built-in safety mechanism. Or let's say they come to me for weight loss and they say, you know what? I really want to lose this weight. I know it's emotional. I say, great. We start working. And then they realize, gosh, if I lose this weight, I'm going to have to start dating again. Or if I lose this weight, as a female, I might attract men again. I don't want to attract men. Are not safe. So is there a secondary gain, right, of keeping this weight on? Am I keeping the weight on because I don't want to date? I'm saying that specifically for someone that might say, well, I'll start dating once I lose the 20 pounds or whatever the thing is, Great. Well, if I'm working on that and they are not ready or that's scary, they are going to resist that. Right. So I guess readiness is just allowing the fear to drop, or allowing the resistance to drop, and the readiness for change. Does that make sense?
Perfect. And going through the stages of processing that fear, that trauma, that belief, whatever it is. There ain't no shortcuts, y'all. I'm going to be straight up with you. Yeah. I'm 42 this year. I've tried to do the shortcuts so many times, and they turned into long cuts that are actually longer. So I want everyone to really feel what Amy's saying. yes, we've heard the old adage, the only way out is through. And I think we know that like it's some kind of shortcut. It's some kind of like soliloquy we hear, like the only way out is through. And it's like, we know that on an intellectual level, but on a heart level, the only way out is through is fucking scary.
Yeah. And I think I love that you brought that up, because I think what is nice or really great about EFT is it provides a very safe container to do it in, to go through it. And it doesn't have to be long. You are not coming to me or any practitioner for a year for the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
You better only need 3 to 5. If it's, I do have regular clients that come to me for different things. They're not coming to me about the issue with their mom again and again and again. We should be resolving that in a series of a few sessions, right? But I think the beauty is that you do have to go through it, but you're providing this way to get rid of it, and you're tapping through it to clear it. So it doesn't take a long time. It doesn't have to be so painful. Because like you're rapidly peeling back the layers of the anger, of the resentment, of the name, whatever you want to say. So you do have to go through it, but I think it provides a really safe way to feel and release. If that makes sense. I think some people say, well, I get this a lot. Well, I'm not angry anymore. I'm not angry at my mom anymore. I got over that years ago. Great. We start tapping. It's like, no, they didn't, right? It's really there. And we go through it. And then they feel on the other side of that so much better.
So I think my advocate inside is saying, what do you mean 3 to 5 sessions, Amy? That's what my advocate is saying. And then of course my heart is like, well, anything is possible if I'm willing to look past the paradox. And I think the paradox is the very thing I want, which is loving connection. Let's say I'm a woman or I'm a man and I'm wanting relationship. The very thing that I want and that my heart desires, I am blocking to keep myself safe. That's the kind of paradox that I'm talking about. How do you get people over that paradox so that it is a faster healing process?
I'm sorry, do you mean if they have resistance to the work or they don't think it's going to work?
Yeah, I was just coming to terms with the paradox myself live in real time. That's why I love podcasting, because I'm like, I was feeling that in this moment with all of us here. So the paradox I'm describing is, let's use myself. Okay. I before I met Carrie, I would constantly be in relationships where I would leave. That was like, I would leave. Because what I found when I explored a lot of different modalities was I didn't want to end up like my parents. If I stay, I'll end up like my parents. That kind of gut belief. And so with her and with our relationship, I'm here. I'm here no matter what. And my love is always bending, always changing, always ever evolving. But that paradox where, for a long time, the very thing that I wanted, which was love and connection, was the very thing that I chose to make up a belief about that I couldn't be involved in. So that paradox of I want something, but I'm protecting myself from it. Mm-hmm. How do you get clients over that hump so that they can go through the quicker process of using EFT?
Right. Well, usually if there's any resistance or like that, I guess that initial thing of safety, security, and like resistance to the change.
Like a closed heart, essentially.
Totally. We start there.
Uh-huh.
I have people who just come to me, they're like, oh, this isn't going to work. I want to do it, but I feel like, so I'm not even starting with their issue. I'm going to tap on the resistance first. There's no point in me even getting into that until we tap on, I have tried everything. And I've never lost weight. And I don't think this is going to work either. I don't even know why I'm here. This, whatever.
You go right to the truth right there.
We do. So, sometimes you're starting a session. I've had, and again, I know I was saying 3 to 5 sessions. I hate to promise numbers, but I'm just saying in general, if you're working on a particular issue, you want results, right? Now, that issue, let's say relationship with mom or dad, whatever.
Yeah.
Then that heals, but then you want to work on you and your spouse, so you do have clients coming back to you, but you're moving into the another thing. You're not still working on that first part should be resolved, and then maybe you have other things you want to work on. But for my example of how I said I worked on relationship stuff to clear that pattern, that shouldn't have been some sort of thing that went on for months. I mean, that it was cleared, I think, and probably from what I recall, I think it was 3 to 5 sessions. Did I have other things I needed to work on? Absolutely. But then you move into that, right? But for folks that come to me, like I've had some people, this is very, particularly for any sort of molest, assault, in the sexual assault realm, they sometimes, we can't even tap on that because they are so terrified just to even go there.
Makes sense.
So our first session, I mean, you're hoping that by the end of it, you might get into something, but I've taken whole sessions just tapping on the fear of going there. I am terrified to open up this box. I have kept this down for so long, and opening it is just going to be an absolute mess. I'm terrified, right? So we just kind of start and tapping through. For those who are listening, I'm tapping to the points. I've just done that before of like, and then the next session's like, okay, I think I can talk to you about what happened. It would be my mistake as a practitioner if I'm like, we're going to talk about the rape that you had. No, they don't even want to say that word, right? They wrote it on the intake form. They're like, they don't even want to refer to it. We're just going to dance around it. So that first session, you're sometimes just trying to like get them comfortable to talk to you about something that's really painful.
That takes a lot of grace and finesse and skill as a practitioner to not just want to heal somebody right now and want to dig in and get it all done. So what is it about your specific way of practicing EFT with clients that allows you to take, it's from what it sounds like, a slow, intuitive approach, but also something that doesn't take years to heal? I find that interesting.
I know, I'm laughing right now because I'm like, oh, I think I learned the hard way early on because I was like, I'm going to go after it. I know what the problem is, right? I could see it,
you
right?
Could see,
and I'm like, oh, it's all there. Well, yeah, that was the problem though. If I pushed them, I mean, I'm just not a pushy person in general. So it wasn't that hard, but there was this healer part of me, if you want to call that. I don't even like to really use that word, but I know what's wrong, right? Well, who am I, right? They need to be ready. And this is on their terms. That's the cool thing about EFT versus like maybe if you were going to like a psychologist or psychiatrist where they're driving the session. The EFT session is driven by the client. So you're only working on what they want to work on. I mean, I do suggest and lead gently, definitely. But if you push something and they're not ready, you will lose that client. So to your point, I think it's just learning to do the dance between of a gentle nudge, like, hey, I know you might not be ready to work on this. This is something down the road I would suggest. I know you're not ready today to tell me about, let's say, I'm thinking of this like a rape situation. I know you're not ready today, but I would say that eventually down the road, it would be great if we could talk about this. And they just know, okay, great, we're not doing it today. Yeah. Great. But if I said, oh, I can clear this trauma for you right now, they're like, I don't want to talk to you about it. This is a really bad thing that happened to me. Yeah. I'm laughing because you learn the hard way. I learned the hard way. I think I'm laughing because I have definitely done that myself, whether it's with myself or my friends or even clients too. And I see this in breathwork a lot. I'm curious how you think this applies to EFT and to your work, where when people come in, it's like the fresh kind of rookie instructors or the rookie practitioners. They'll just be like, we're going to heal everything. We're going to heal everyone, And what I love about yours, and it reminds me, we'll link this in our show notes too. And we're also going to talk about some of your trainings. I know you're going to be doing those, I think, again this year, right? Your trainings? Okay. Yeah. So we'll definitely have time to talk about those. But I want to talk about this
what you're doing, it really feels like systematic desensitization, which is like this psychological term. You're getting someone, for an example, that has a fear of an elevator. And I heard Jordan Peterson talk about this. I integrated it into my Breathe program, and I thought, okay, this is beautiful. The last thing you want to do with somebody that's scared of an elevator is throw them into an elevator. No, that is terrible. And like you're saying with your EFT clients, you're not going to go right to the sexual trauma session 1, moment 1. That's not how it works. Can you unpack that just a little bit more so we can get a little more granular on this systematic desensitization, where you're really taking one step slowly, intuitively at a time towards the trauma or towards the fear?
Right. I mean, I think, oh gosh, there was so much there I was thinking about. Yeah, I think I'm laughing because my own approach in my life, whenever I've had an issue, is to go after it full force.
Me too.
Right. I'm going to find the thing. And I think it's the balance of knowing not everybody wants to do it that way. Right. I'm like, I mean, think about living in LA. It's like a playground for healers. Right. And I think
a lot of them are wounded. They're wounded and they're teaching people how to heal their wounds, but they're not healed themselves.
Totally.
Anyways, totally different podcast.
So I know we could talk about that for hours, but I do think for me, I've always kind of been full force in my own. When I see an issue that I'm having or a pattern, I'm like, oh, I do want it. So that kind of like, yes, I'm in, I will do the thing.
Yeah.
But and that's been just such a journey of learning, is that everybody's on their own timeline. Right. So I think knowing that, but how to unpack it? Oh gosh, it's just so different with every client. Some of them are really full force. They're just like we were talking about, we are, and they want to go after it and they're not afraid. I find that other people will use language that distances the problem. Well, I have this wound, they'll say to me, right, from when I was a child. And I'll say, oh, okay. Well, can you tell me about that? And they'll use language that's this kind of, I guess there was esoteric or kind of like new agey. Sorry, that was the word I wanted, where they distance themselves. And I'll be like, well, can we just get after what the thing? Are you mad? Are you resent? Do you have shame? What is? So I think I try to kind of deconstruct it first if they're trying to distance the thing from this detached way. Mm-hmm. And so I really respond to how they're talking. How are they telling me about it? Is there resistance? If there's shame, I start right there. We are not going anywhere until that's cleared. Right? Because that's that real low level vibration. You really can't get to anything else until you clear that out. So I think I listen to them. I see where they're at, their readiness. And then I just start there. And really, it's such a miracle. Even when I'm like, oh God, what are we going to do? I'm not sure where to start, I just start tapping on what they're telling me. That's the amazing thing. I'm sitting here writing down and then adding in, right? I am using my intuition, but I'm really using their words. And they'll be like, oh, you're so good. And I'm like, I'm actually just repeating back what you told me. I mean, I am adding. Yeah. But so I think just to unpack it, it's just, it naturally works to peel back layers so magically that it just really unfolds for you in the session. But I think it's first seeing where your client is.
That's powerful. So
learning.
For every single emotional intelligence practitioner or just human being that wants to go deeper into this work, obviously you can go to tappingfortruth.com. That's Amy's website, and just contact her. Yes. But the trainings, this is really cool because a lot of people, especially here in Austin, LA, Chicago, all the big cities, right? Mm-hmm. Yoga instructors or life coaches, or just honestly, if you're a coach of any kind, straight up, and you work with humans, which is hopefully you're not, trying to make a dog run a business. Hopefully you're just like a human working with humans, and I'm sure even animals could benefit from EFT. I don't know. Do animals do EFT? Is that even a thing?
Well, it's kind of hilarious. You can actually tap for your animal.
Can you?
It's called surrogate tapping.
Okay.
This is a whole thing, but
that's a whole different thing.
And you can tap for babies too. You imagine the baby and you tap as if you're the infant or toddler. I do work with children quite young once they can start tapping on themselves. But if it's a baby or toddler, you can actually tap energetically for them.
Tell us about the trainings, because we had talked about this and whatever feels good for you. Actually, we haven't talked about it, so here we are talking about it on the show. I know you wanted to incentivize people to take the program, so I'll just say code Josh, and then you and I will figure out later what works best for you as far as people getting a discount or people getting something really cool, exclusive because they're with us.
I'd be happy to do that. Yeah. I was just setting up the dates. I am doing an online over Zoom training in June. And then I am going to do an in-person in Ojai in September.
Okay.
So I am doing in-persons there. There's a lovely studio in Ojai. For those of you who don't know, it's about an hour and a half from LA, north of LA. But I am doing an online one in June. I think, that really helps people from all over be able to come and not have the cost of flying and such. So the trainings are great for just anyone who wants to use it in their lives or with their families and friends. And then obviously too, if they want to add it to their healing practice. I think it's for everyone. And what was your other question? Let's see. What would they learn from it? Is that what you'd like to know?
Well, who is it really for? So right now, if you're interested in this, if you've enjoyed, because I've so enjoyed this. I mean, it's been 5 years since we connected. You really walk your talk. You show up grounded. You show up educated, intelligent, really able to go anywhere in the conversation. And that's how I know that someone's really a master at what they do. EFT can be fairly complicated if you haven't practiced it a lot. EFT from a master can be really simple because essentially it's just what you're showing through your experience. So the reason I'm saying that is because I don't know any other EFT practitioners that I would want to interview on the podcast. I really haven't talked about it at all. So I think about your level 1, your level 2. If someone is here with us and they're feeling inspired, we'll link this right down below, joshtrent.com/tapping. And that'll give people all the access to your programs. They can sign up for the in-person or the online. What are they actually going to learn? I mean, obviously they'll learn the introduction and the basics, but in level 2, that's for the practitioners.
Well, it's for both. It's for everyone. I just like to mention too, for people that were interested in just talking to me and wanting to understand more, whether or not to work together or train. I do have complimentary consults too, and that's easy to book an appointment online with me if people have questions. But the trainings, I love it because they're so in depth. You think, well, how could this training be like 4 days? Level 1's 2 days, and level 2 is 2 days. It's level 1 we do cover all the basics. But what I love about this training is that we really go into why are we doing this? We go into the brain and kind of the research behind why we tap. So we're just doing that. And then we get into the tapping points and going through the basic recipe of tapping. So you can leave level 1 knowing how to tap. We do cover trauma in the first level, which is great. So okay, if I know someone, let's say someone had a car accident a few weeks ago, you would be able to tap with them. And so that just in level 1, you're getting that. Level 2, what I love about it is we go into the belief systems and the patterns. And so many people are surprised so just for yourself, to know, I had no idea some of the beliefs I was carrying around prosperity and money and self-worth until I took the training. And you're going through these beliefs and rating them and going, oh my God, I can't believe I think these things, right?
Yeah.
So I think level 2 is so interesting because that's where we go into the pattern, the patterning and the belief system work and really getting after. And that's such the bulk of EFT. It really is the heavy weight of, even if you didn't have a trauma, what kind of patterns are in my life? If you did have a trauma, how is that reoccurring? How is that thing, it's still going in my life? That, operating system is still running. So I think that's really beautiful about level 2. But some people just want to take the first one just to get the base knowledge, but you leave being able to work with people. So it's really great.
We only have a couple minutes. In the last 2 minutes, I just want to share one thing. Like, I am definitely in a space in my life right now where I am exploring whatever I feel called to explore so that I can gain more wisdom. That's why I renamed the podcast. That was my Death and Rebirth. And one thing that I've been reflecting on, which is a question I always ask every guest at the end of every show, but this one's really specific for you and I. The road you've taken to get here, going through your own emotional inventory, doing the practices, working with clients, how do you define wellness? In other words, what does it mean to live your life well?
That's a good one. Well, especially because I am working with people, I absolutely have to take care of myself. Right. And I think what was nice about going into EFT, I'd already been a client for so many years. I continue to do it with, I swap with other practitioners. So wellness, Scott, I think it's so much bigger than just like, eating well and things like that. I think it's really taking care of yourself and taking care of it to clear anything that has happened to you in your life that was traumatic, and both everyday stress, right? And to stay grounded. I think I take that very seriously. I'm human. Life happens constantly. And so I think it's taking care of your nervous system regularly. I mean, every day.
Regulate.
And people use the word grounded so much, but I really do think, especially living here in LA, you can kind of get swept away. And I think with all the energy, so absolutely having a daily practice to ground and keep your feet on earth, because and then navigate through. So I think whatever that is for you, wellness, it can be so much in there. It's overwhelming, especially I'm sure in Austin, because there's all these choices. So for me, it was, can I narrow this down and pick my top 3? So for me, that's EFT. I do get acupuncture regularly. And then it's the Kundalini yoga. So I think it was about maybe not, there is so much here.
Sure.
And it got overwhelming when I first moved. I said, all right, let me narrow down my daily practice. Not that I won't go do breath work or I don't go and do these awesome things, but can I have a core set that's what I do every day? That's kind of I think that's where the magic is for me, was narrowing it, picking my top 3, and then going from there.
That was wise. Thank you. I feel that. And I know that sometimes in my own life, I've felt like too many choices, an overwhelming bevy of choices can actually force me, if I'm not aware, to choose not to choose anything and to stay stuck. So that was beautiful. Like having 3 things that you can actually work on embodying is huge.
Yeah.
Amy, thank you for this. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the spaces we went in the conversation. It was a different podcast about tapping, and obviously, if you came in and you fast forwarded, or if you're listening to this now, go to the beginning. We did a small practice so you can see the beginning pieces of what tapping looks like. Again, joshtrent.com/tapping. You can go to tappingfortruth.com and reach out to Amy if you need anything. Amy, we covered a lot of ground. Do you feel like we missed anything as parting guidance for you to say as we say goodbye?
Oh gosh, no, you were very thorough. We really dove in. No, I think we covered everything. It was beautiful.
Well, where can people find you besides your website? Are you active on the social, or are you doing Kundalini instead?
No, my Instagram is also at Tapping for Truth. And then the website, tappingfortruth.com. That's how they can find me.
Okay. Well, you guys know what to do. Until we see you again next week, just go to wellnessforce.com/community, where we're talking more about this. And Amy and tapping. Amy, thank you for the work you do in the world. Thank you for cutting through all the BS and tapping for truth.
Yes. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Okay, you guys. Until Amy and I see you again, we'll talk to you soon. I'm wishing you love and wellness.